Hello and welcome to the Neurodivergent Social Work Voices campaign. I am Florence Smith, the Neurodivergent social worker and your host. If you've stopped in to listen, there must be a reason why. Maybe it's to listen to and learn from the first-hand experiences of neurodivergent, or as I like to call us, neurosparkly social workers, on how you can create a neuro-inclusive workplace. Or maybe you're seeking advice from other neurodivergent social workers about what works for them. Whatever your reason, it's nice to have you here, because for 1 month we will hear from 19 neurosparkly social workers. The conversations will explore 19 journeys, 19 unique neurological profiles, and 19 tips for other neurosparkly social workers. So, why has this campaign been launched? Well, it's been done with the vision to raise awareness, share knowledge, celebrate neurodivergence, as well as increase representation of neurosparkly social workers across the profession. You can find us everywhere from students, social work assistants, frontline professionals, educators, and managers. Today I am talking with Deb, an ADHDer social worker. Hello, Deb.
Hello.
Deb, first off, please could you tell me a little bit about your current role in social work and maybe a little bit about the Basworth Special Interest Group as well?
Yeah, so I'm an adult social worker normally, but I'm actually on secondment at the moment in the learning and development team. And I'm on secondment mainly because it's helping me do a lot of work around neurodiversity training and supporting neurodivergent students and newly qualified workers. So that's been really, really good. I've been really lucky to have that opportunity.
And it's amazing that they've also kind of noticed that within you and created that platform.
It's really good because I was trying to do it. So obviously being an adult care social worker with a caseload and trying to do all of this on top was kind of difficult to manage. So when this came up, it's allowing me to do it as part of the role. So being able to kind of write training and a lot of the ASYEs that I'm looking at tend to be those ones that are neurodivergent, so it's just making sure that I can support those. And it's really good that the local authority are acknowledging that there's a need there to have that support from someone who really understands and gets it. And it's also given me time to be able to like set up a network for workers and things like that. So it's yeah, I'm really lucky that I've been able to do that. I know that a lot of people don't get that opportunity, so I'm embracing it while I'm still on secondment before I go back.
And it also really embodies that nothing about us without us as well.
Yeah.
And really coming from that lived experience perspective of you yourself were once a newly qualified social worker and a student. So can have although it's your own lived experiences, can understand actually what kind of challenges might be there, but also how you might be able to use your strengths in your direct practice in all aspects of social work.
And it's just those little things like, so I've been doing a lot of work with practice educators, and just things like looking at things in a different way, reframing things, having different conversations, and just, the things that aren't in textbooks.
Yeah.
The real stuff, the real things that kind of come across when you might be chatting to somebody, maybe even someone that hasn't either fully come to terms with their traits or, anything like that. It's really good that they've embraced it and let me do it. So that's good.
Wow. Hopefully they'll be able to kind of promote it as a model for other local authorities as well.
Definitely. It's been really good. And I think the feedback's been positive as well. So, hopefully it's helping. And then the group's been going for a year now. A year now. And that was, I can't believe that's gone so quick. And it was set up. So initially it happened because I So I was diagnosed with ADHD during lockdown, and I wrote a piece for the Professional Social Work magazine just as a bit of a, this is my experience of lockdown. This is how I found it. This is what happened. And actually it led to a diagnosis, and it was, it was all a bit difficult, but actually this is what came out of it. I had a load of people reach out to me, which is and I spoke to someone within Basra about how do we connect people, because it feels like we need a space, because I couldn't find any sort of peer support or anywhere that understood the profession as well. So we set up a special interest group because I needed something that had a bit of a platform to it, because I needed a bit of structure and a bit of support to help me. I expected like not too many people to come, but as you know, coming along, we've got a lot of people that have joined up. Since I think there's about 200 people on the mailing list, and I think we have between I think the most we've had to a meeting is about 70, and generally we have at least 30 or 40 come each month. And the group it's there. There's two functions. It's peer support. Is a big function. But then also there's the point of trying to change things. So it's there as a way of trying to change the culture, trying to produce material to support the workforce. So things like working guidance, to help and advise. So, supporting with hopefully creating training in the future for managers and providing advice. Obviously the usual raising awareness that we always hear about, but that is important. And and we've also, as your campaign is doing, it's just talking about the fact that we're here, and talking about the fact that actually we should have a safe space to talk, to be ourselves, to bring our whole selves to work, to be neuro sparkly. I love that. I so love that. Because I think there's, a lot of social workers don't feel safe to do that still.
Definitely not. When there are still quite a lot of misconceptions and stigma, it is a very vulnerable space to openly talk about your neurosparkliness, but also kind of your experience within social work. And I have to say, the Basra special interest group is such a nice space to be able to talk to people who have the same experiences, and they don't look at you kind of with a blank face of, oh, I've never experienced that, and you thrive and bounce off of each other, because it's, for me anyway, I find it's that connection of I'm not alone, and there is someone else who's like this, and your energy levels just rise.
I always come out of it really like, right, I'm going to take on the world. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to... It's dead empowering, isn't it, when you come out and it's like, okay, I'm not on my own, I can do this, I'm all right. Because you do feel quite isolated, don't you? And you do second guess yourself, and all of that kind of self-doubt comes in. And I think when you get together with the group and you hear that, there's struggles and there's challenges, of course, but there's also people in the group that are, that are doing well. There are people in there that can share things that have worked for them. There are managers in the group that are kind of going, I'm here, we're doing this, and I don't know, I think it just makes you realise that actually it isn't, I know we were talking about this earlier, but it isn't you as a person, it isn't your failing, and that as soon as you get that self-awareness, that you can start to work with that, I think, and that's so helpful.
And the one thing I like is actually the breadth and representation of social workers within the group of, because when you do kind of internalize negative talk, sometimes I've thought that my neurodivergence might actually limit my career, and this is when I didn't know too much about it and didn't recognize the strengths that it came with. So joining and actually seeing social workers in all walks of the profession and in different roles, be it managers, it was really inspiring to see actually I can take myself where I can, And it's not my brain that's going to limit me. If I can really champion and hone in on my strengths and understand how my brain works, then I can really use that to my advantage.
Yeah. And I think the other thing it does as well, and I know it shouldn't, but there are times that we're coming up with, and we know this, where we are coming up against stigma or perhaps sort of bad experiences. And I suppose what the group's doing is it's giving you that sort of that platform and that understanding of, okay, how can I advocate for myself in the right way?
Mm-hmm.
How can I and advocate for myself in a way that educates? Because what you want to do if you're coming up against something that you're thinking, actually this isn't right, you want to leave that with some form of education. You want to change it for the better, don't you? And I think that's something that the group's trying to do, isn't it? That we're trying to sort of say, okay, this sounds like bad practice right now, but what we want to come away from this is, okay, this is how we want to change this for future social workers. So it's kind of, yes, we're going to come up against negative and bad practice, but we want to change that and educate. So it's giving us that space and that understanding of how to challenge and how to advocate. I think that's hugely important, because I wouldn't have known what to do or how to do that, and I probably would have just kept quiet if I'd have come across. I've been really lucky personally, but I know, had I not been, I wouldn't have known what to do or how to do it.
No, I feel exactly that as well. And in traditional neurodivergence, I had there was something very interesting that you said, and it's fallen out of my ear.
Yes.
What on? And my brain's doing that thing where the more you try and grasp it, the further away it goes.
Yeah. And it's on the tip of your tongue, and you're like,
yeah, what on earth was that? And I'm with someone who's neurodivergent, so I'm not going to try and cling on to that at all, or even apologise for it, because that's how I work.
Because I won't remember it either.
No, exactly. Okay, so Deb, you were diagnosed as an ADHDer during lockdown. So during that process, did you learn kind of about how your brain sparkles, or could you give us a little insight into how it sparkles and how it works for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think you go through a process, don't you, when you get diagnosed? So for me, first it was the whole negative side of it, like, oh, it doesn't do this and I can't do that, and oh, it's just terrible and I'm absolutely rubbish. But I think what and maybe again it's the group that's done this, but when I stop and look back and I'm like, actually, do you know what we've kind of achieved? Like, we've set up this group, and sometimes I'll have these conversations and I'll think, I've just been talking to whoever this like hugely important person is about neurodiversity, and like, how did I get there? And that's because of my sparkliness. That's because I've seen an injustice and it's mattered to me, and I've focused on that, and I want to make it right, and that's a trait. That's because I've that's what we do. And we don't just do it by halves. Like, we go for it, and
we commit.
When I wanted to set this thing up, it wasn't just oh, that would be nice, we'll do a little thing. Like, no, I want, it's like, I'm setting up a group UK wide, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're taking it here, we're taking it, and I've done it, and I'm proud of that. And and in work, I look at it and I think, actually, there's times where I've felt kind of worried about my abilities and things, as we all go through, but then I've looked at people maybe that I've worked with or supported or gone out and visited, and when I've kind of used, I suppose, those skills that I've got, like the empathy and the understanding of where they're at, maybe if they're neurodivergent, or if they're kind of having those different ways of thinking or executive functioning thing, and I've stopped and thought about how they're working, and you know, people have kind of stopped and burst into tears and said, you know what, no one's ever actually understood me.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's a skill we have,
Yeah.
of stopping and kind of going, actually, okay, why is this? Where is this coming from? Why is this? And we don't just take stuff at face value, because we're the really irritating ones that go, yeah, but why though?
Yeah.
How though? Yes, but
But why are you doing that like that? Or
why and how? And but when you ask those questions, you get to the root of things, and you don't just gloss over the top. And that, for me, has made a difference to people. So yeah, it took me a while to figure that out, but you know, that's a strength. That's a strength of my neurosparkliness. It is. I'm sure that is, and you know, it takes a while to accept it, doesn't it?
definitely, yeah. And to really kind of put on to the top of, or put on stage, our strengths as well, rather than kind of like being weighed down by the challenges of what I can't do in a neurotypical world. It's actually, yeah, but what can I do that they can't do right now?
Yeah.
And because with dyslexia, there's a saying that like challenges and advantages are the same side of the neurological coin. So it's also reflecting on, oh, okay, yeah, it might be difficult. My sound processing might be difficult, but actually, what's on the other side of that coin? What can I use that's on the other side of that coin to enhance this, or to relate to the clients that we work with? For me, it's children and families, and talk openly about it as well. When you do have that proudness, and I find myself in visits, if it's quite bright, I will, now that I have the confidence, I will say, I'm going to put my sunglasses on because I've got visual stress at the moment, and it's too bright. And when I have been with families who someone might be neurodivergent, just having that openness of, actually, I'm going to make this adaptation for myself, and I'm not going to apologize for it because this is who I am. And sometimes that's helped other people ask for adjustments, be it children, families, or colleagues.
You see relief on people's faces, don't you? Like, oh, thank God. Right, okay, I need this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're human. I don't know, like just being human.
Yeah.
I don't know when we stopped being human, but I think just that strength of being able to just say, do you know what, this is what I need, and I'm going to ask for that because you will get the best out of me if I do. I think that's a huge strength.
And being unapologetic, once you are in that space where you can embrace it, I feel like one of the sparkly sides of being neurodivergent is being unapologetic and being fiercely like, I am who I am.
Yeah. It's hard to get there, but I think once you do, it's quite empowering for other people.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, and Deb, could you tell me a little bit about your experience of social work? So this could be ranging from your experience as a student to your experiences as a practitioner of recruitment, onboarding, or direct practice.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, so when I was a student, I wasn't diagnosed. So for me as a student, it was quite difficult. I always remember just having to work much harder than everyone else and thinking, why is this so hard? I mean, I came out with a really good result because I worked incredibly hard to get it. But again, I think that was part of the, I must prove to everybody that I can. It was really difficult to kind of focus in lessons and all that kind of stuff, but I did get through. But I think as a practitioner, I think one thing that I've really noticed is, as I've progressed, it's got harder as complexity of cases and things have got harder and all of that kind of stuff. But I don't know if this is even answering your question, but I'll say it anyway. But one thing that I kind of reflected on is, as I've progressed, it's got more difficult to kind of manage, or what I interpreted as manage my traits. But then I think, I don't know if it was a conversation with you one day, but I reflected on that, and it's kind of actually maybe that's just because the job's got harder.
Yeah.
And I'd interpreted it as, okay, this is me not coping, but actually the job gets harder.
Yeah. It gets more
The
complex.
job is hard,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't necessarily mean that's me not coping. It's just that social work is a really difficult job. And I think that there's a real thing about attributing it to your diagnosis.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm finding this hard, so that must be this. That must be my ADHD. Rather than, this is really difficult because it's social work and it's hard.
Mm-hmm. It does almost become a blame, doesn't it? Because like, even because I didn't have a diagnosis until kind of late secondary school, but in the kind of challenges in education, if I found something difficult, it would be like, oh, well, it's me. And then when I did get that diagnosis, I was like, okay, so I am dyslexic, so it's the dyslexia that's creating the problem, rather than actually looking at the environment around me and thinking, oh, hold on, actually I exist within a context and within systems. So
when you think about the fact that we've just gone through something that probably a lot of other social workers haven't ever had to. We've just gone through like a pandemic and changing a whole way of working, and pressures probably that we've never had to deal with before on the social care system and all of that stuff. Like, it's gonna be hard. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's me struggling because I have ADHD. Like,
struggling because it's
we're struggling because it's really difficult time. So that was just from one reflection, because straight away I was attributing that to, oh, well, it's me.
Yeah.
And maybe some of it was, but I think that was one thing. And I don't know. I know that within my role, we're doing quite a bit on recruitment, and we've been looking at things like interviews and things like that, and and I just, it always makes me remember kind of, well, how horrific I am in interviews, because I just, and I've kind of given this feedback to my local authority, because interviews are so, I don't know about you, but you're expected to kind of have all of this knowledge and be able to kind of pull all of this out in this moment, and I can't do that. I can't even remember my own name sometimes. Like, my brain, there's a wall that just comes down, and there are adjustments there, and I think that's really important. And I think with me, I mean, I was quite lucky in that the person in my interview knew me, but I still remember she was like in front of me, like kind of waving her arms at me, like, I know you can do. I know there's more to come on. But no, I don't know. But the questions that I struggled on, it wasn't the questions about practice. It was the questions like, what are your strengths?
Oh gosh,
I don't know. I just find that all of those, I just can't do them. I can't do them. So that was something that I've really thought about a lot in terms of how we recruit social workers. And again, this is another thing that we do in the team that I'm in at the moment. We do progression interviews when you move from grade to grade, and all of those kind of conversations and stuff. They're really hard when you're neurodivergent, and you're kind of asked all these on the spot questions, and it's like, oh, I don't know. You need to give me time to process this and think about it and actually prepare a little bit, because I don't know. I mean, those questions about where are you going to be in 5 years? I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to, I don't know. I don't know.
Tomorrow at the moment.
I don't know. And then there's all the things about, like, well, but what do you want to hear?
Yeah.
What am I going to say that might upset you? And I don't know, and all of these kind of nuances that I don't know. I'm not sure if that even answered your question, but yeah.
And I think it's just, it gives me kind of goosebumps hearing how you're being able to use your experiences to make change, because, and especially within a specific organisation as well, because it is really difficult to get that investment, and then to actually kind of use lived experiences and then be able to draw on other people that as well, of actually what did you find challenging, what would have worked for you as well. Or if people do have, because really struggle with interviews, and I spend and I really dislike it when I get given an interview with only like a week's notice, because actually I end up making posters on where I'm going to interview for. So I'll try and make a guess of kind of what questions they might ask around kind of like law, examples of safeguarding. I'll have a poster on the organisation themselves on like what are their values, because I might, even if I read that, I might have that in my head, but as soon as someone asks me, it's almost as if someone closes the safe, and it's like, I don't know the combination to get this information right now. And the more I try and do it, the less I can grab it and give it to you. Because I've been in one interview where I was told I wasn't allowed to take those posters in with me because it gave me an unfair advantage, even though I requested it as a reasonable adjustment. So it's really important that anyone who's going to give interviews does get that kind of education and training on a reasonable adjustment is a reasonable adjustment. It's not giving someone an advantage. It's giving a level playing field, because even if we develop these kind of tools and ways of working ourselves, other people have to enable us to use them as well, because that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, definitely. I've had it even where I've had interviews and things on Teams, and I've had little bits of paper all stuck around, and I've still said completely different things to the things I've had. Like,
okay, and what advice would you give to other social workers?
For me, I think there's two bits of advice that I kind of want to give. The first is, and it's something actually that I've kind of stolen from Ellie Chappell, who's quite active on Twitter, and she talks about the power of the pause, and for me that's really powerful for in us, in our practice, but also us for ourselves, because I'm so quick to kind of jump to things, especially with my own abilities. I'm so quick to jump to, right, that's it, this is happening, that's happening, people are thinking this, people are thinking that, or you haven't done this, you haven't done that right, it's all gonna go terribly wrong, and all of this has gone, blah blah blah. So I now kind of do this pause thing before I respond to anybody, before I do anything myself, before I it's just that pause thing. I always pause and stop for a second and kind of, right, is what you're thinking a reasonable thought, or could you be thinking with emotions? And that kind of help, I don't know, that just sort of, it just helps me make sense sometimes of my like racing brain a little bit, and kind of stop a little bit and like, okay, right, just stop for a second, right, okay. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing that is what is a you problem and what is a someone else problem? We were reflecting on when you respond to things and when you're talking about things, and and how you question yourself, and how it's kind of like, oh, I don't know if that was right, or I should have said that, or was this right, or was that right, and you worry, don't you, and all of that kind of stuff, and you doubt yourself, and so we kind of said, right, there's a process that we can do here where you can stop and say, right, was it appropriate? Did I ask something appropriate? Was the timing appropriate? Was it, did I use fact? Did I, kind of how we do assessments, did I use fact? Was it all, because if it was, then that's not a me problem, that's a them problem. I cannot, and it's that thing about what you can control and not control. You can't control other people's responses. So if you've done something and said something and someone's responded to you in a way that isn't great, just reflect, look at what you did, and if you can answer all those questions comfortably, that's a them problem, not a you problem. And it's helped me so many times to kind of stop beating myself up and thinking, oh my God, I've done this is awful. And it really has helped me to just reflect and think, okay, it's not me.
Stop the rumination.
Not me. Yeah, because that's what we do. So I think that if that's one thing that anyone can take away, it does, it genuinely, I promise, it helps. It really does help.
And the pause comes into that as well, when you said kind of like stop and ask those questions. It's like two pieces of the puzzle. It's kind of like, pause and reflect for a second, and then once you're in the space to ask those questions and answer them, you can. And because I know you've spoken about it in relation to kind of working with clients and with a student, but as I'm even thinking for myself on how I can communicate with managers, and sometimes when things are said, and it could be something about, I've had one experience of a manager sending a blanket email about spelling and punctuation in assessments, and how actually it's unacceptable as a social worker to not proofread your work. And in my head, I'm ruminating, I'm with my emotional brain, they're going to fire me because my spelling's not excellent. And when actually that is a them problem. And the fact is they know that I'm dyslexic, and they know there are other social workers within the team with different neurodivergence, and that isn't an us problem. Making sure that we're supported is a them problem, but you internalize it, don't you?
Absolutely. You do. And straight away, I don't know about you, but whenever you see those emails, you immediately think, well, that's me.
They're
talking about me.
I'm like, why didn't you just send it to me? You didn't have to pretend it was anyone else.
Yeah, definitely. I've had emails that have been sent, not even from my manager, from someone else, another manager from another team who's sent out a blanket email generally. And I've even rang my manager going, do they mean me?
Yeah.
She's like, no, why would they? Because.
Oh, I know. It does. It puts you at kind of like a black hole of thought, doesn't it?
Yeah, but now I've started doing this practice of, right, okay, stop. Do you do this? Do you do this? Yes, you do. Yeah. Okay, so that's a them thing, not a you thing.
Yeah.
So stop. And it does help me to just, it's almost like having a bit of a word with yourself, and it does stop me from spiraling.
Yeah. Or getting stuck in a pivot as well, because once you are kind of ruminating on the negatives, or not even ruminating on the negatives, just ruminating, it's then like being able to start something else gets so hindered by the thought just being right at the forefront of your brain and just taking up all of that space.
We know we do things quite methodically. Like I know that if I've done something, I will have considered it. It will be, it will be kind of, I know that I've done this for this and this and this and this. And when I break it down, I can be like, okay, no, it was okay. It was. And if it wasn't, because we all make mistakes, if it wasn't, I can kind of stop myself and go, okay, right, I'll own that then.
Yeah.
But again, it stops that spiraling. So yeah, that's my bit of advice.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about today that you haven't had the opportunity to, or that we kind of haven't drifted over to that subject at all?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, the group is there, so I'm gonna have to mention that because I would love for people to come along and join the group. And I just wanted to mention about that's kind of there for you to be as little or as much a part of as you want to. So I don't, you don't, if you want to just come along and listen with the camera off and not say a word, that's totally acceptable. Or equally, if you want to come along and be very active and vocal, that's equally acceptable. So I wanted to mention that. But I suppose I just want people to know that unfortunately at the moment there is a bit of an onus on us to be the voices, and that is a shame, but it is on us. But I suppose each voice, and that's kind of why you're doing this, isn't it? I suppose each voice that there is, each individual voice adds together. And that will be really powerful. Yeah, and that will be really powerful. So yeah, I just wanted to end on that really.
Oh, wow. Deb, thank you for giving your time to celebrate neurodivergence in social work and for sharing your experiences. And to everyone who is listening, thank you. And if you're interested in learning more about neurodivergent social workers and neuroinclusion, please check out the Neurodivergent Social Workers website, as well as the British Association of Social Workers Special Interest Group. Links for both will be in the information below. Thank you.